The mask of goodness, there's a silent confession hidden beneath the porcelain smile of the truly kind. A confession that, if you listen closely enough, whispers of danger, of vulnerability, and of an insidious form of self-sabotage that even the most cynical among us rarely recognize. We are raised on a simplistic fable. Kindness is strength. Kindness is virtue. Kindness is its own reward. But what if that fable is a beautiful, deadly lie? What if the very goodness you champion is, in the eyes of the ruthless, nothing more than a neon sign proclaiming, "Target here. Exploit me"? For centuries, philosophers, rulers, and the architects of power have understood this hidden truth. It was a truth Machiavelli, the master strategist of human nature, dared to engrave into the soul of Western thought. He didn't preach cruelty, he simply illuminated the catastrophic error of unexamined, boundless benevolence. He warned the aspiring leader and, by extension, every person seeking agency in a world full of predators to beware of the fatal flaws hidden within the mask of pure goodness. This isn't a feel-good video. This is a cold, hard lesson in psychological self-defense. You are about to confront the unsettling reality of what your inherent desire to be good is truly costing you. You're not a monster for listening to this. You're becoming safer, stronger, and infinitely more difficult to manipulate. We're going to dive deep into the 7 deadly flaws of dangerous kindness. The psychological vulnerabilities that turn a good heart into an exploitable weakness. If you've ever been burned by someone you helped, if your generosity has been met with ingratitude, or if you feel consistently drained by the demands of others, then pay attention. Because this journey isn't about becoming less kind. It's about becoming strategically kind. It's about transforming your virtue from a brittle shield into an unbreakable weapon of integrity. Stay with me, because what you don't know about your own kindness can and will be used against you. Flaw 1. The blindness of empathy. The first, and arguably most insidious flaw lurking in the heart of dangerous kindness is what we'll call the blindness of empathy. This is the state where your capacity to feel another person's pain, your empathy, becomes a profound cognitive fog, obscuring your ability to judge their character or their intent. Think of it. Genuine kindness is rooted in a fundamental ability to step into another's shoes. We feel their suffering, and this emotional resonance compels us to action. But when this emotion is unchecked, when it's not filtered through the cool, detached lens of rational appraisal, it becomes a liability. Your radar for deception, for manipulation, for simple user behavior, completely shuts down. The truly dangerous manifestation of this flaw is the creation of the self-sacrificial lamb. This isn't just about being generous. It's about a deep, often subconscious psychological need to be needed, to be the savior. The self-sacrificial lamb actively seeks out the broken, the needy, the perpetual victim, not out of pure altruism, but because the act of saving validates their own inherent goodness. It fills a void. The manipulator, the emotional vampire, the person Machiavelli would simply refer to as the ungrateful, doesn't even need to work hard. They simply need to amplify the distress signal. They present a compelling narrative of victimhood, and the empath self-sacrificial lamb responds not to the person, but to the emotion that person is projecting. This is the kindness that pays the price for another's irresponsibility. You loan money to the person who has demonstrated zero financial discipline. Not because they'll pay it back, but because their distress makes you feel bad. You cover for the perpetually lazy colleague, not because they deserve it, but because the stress of their potential failure is emotionally contagious to you. Machiavelli's warning here is subtle, yet brutal. Men are more taken by the present than by the past, and when they find things well, they enjoy them and do not look for another way out. In the context of your kindness, this means the recipient is often only concerned with the present relief you offer. Your past sacrifices are forgotten. Your future boundaries are ignored. Your kindness is not seen as a gift to be cherished, but a resource to be consumed. To escape this flaw, you must cultivate cognitive empathy, the ability to understand someone's perspective without feeling their emotions. You move from the emotional question, how would I feel in their situation, to the strategic question, what is their actual pattern of behavior, and what is the likely outcome of my intervention? This shift from feeling to analysis is the first step towards self. You remain kind, but you stop being an easy mark. You stop being the lamb that the self-sacrificial lamb believes their suffering will somehow inspire the recipient to change. It rarely does. It merely entrenches the recipient's belief that they can continue their destructive pattern, because someone will always be there to break their fall. And this, my friends, is why this kindness is not just dangerous to you, but often detrimental to the very person you seek to help. It's the ultimate enabler, cloaked in the noble guise of compassion. We are speaking of the psychology that drives people to stay in abusive relationships, or to perpetually bankroll a failing relative, or to exhaust themselves professionally, picking up the slack for others. It is the need to be the hero, which tragically transforms you into the victim. It is the empathetic blindness that sees a plea, but fails to see the systemic pattern of exploitation that has accompanied it for years. The true kindness here is not to intervene, but to allow natural consequences to take their course, even if it's painful for you to watch. That is the hard wisdom of Machiavelli's world. That is the cost of sight. This blindness also operates on a macro level, influencing our perception of social issues and justice. We often see the narrative of the most emotionally charged victim, and the kindness flaw compels us to act immediately, passionately, and without thorough investigation. This susceptibility too compelling, but potentially incomplete or distorted. Narratives is a goldmine for those who seek to manipulate public opinion or exploit social momentum. They know that your heart will open faster than your mind can analyze. They leverage your empathy as a tool of political and social leverage. They weaponize your compassion. The antidote is not less feeling, but more data. Before you open your wallet, your time, or your emotional reserves, ask, what is this person's history? What concrete steps have they taken to solve their own problem? And critically, am I solving their problem, or merely alleviating their discomfort, while allowing the problem to persist? The self-sacrificial lamb always solves the immediate discomfort. The strategic mind addresses the root cause, and sometimes the kindest thing you can do is refuse to participate in the cycle. This requires a difficult separation, the separation between the person's pain and the person's agency. You acknowledge the pain, that's the empathy, but you respect their agency by not taking over their responsibilities. That's the strategy. This is the difference between a kind person who is used and a kind person who is respected. One is a resource. The other is a genuine partner. We must remember that every single time you bail someone out, you are reinforcing a neural pathway in their mind. You are teaching them, when things get tough, I don't need to be resourceful. I just need to find the nearest soft heart. You become the unwitting architect of their continued helplessness. This cycle of enabling, born out of a good heart, is one of the darkest betrayals of true human potential. You are trading their growth for your temporary feeling of being a good person. This fundamental flaw is the most common reason good people burn out. They start out wanting to help, but because they lack boundaries and critical judgment, they soon become emotional reservoirs for everyone else's unmet needs. They are constantly depleted, always running on empty. Because the very mechanism of their kindness unchecked, empathy is a siphoning tool for the unprincipled. Break the cycle. Look past the tears and examine the track record. That is where truth and safety lies. Flaw 2. The paralysis of conflict aversion, the reluctant doormat. The second deadly flaw is a classic Achilles heel for the kind-hearted. The paralysis of conflict aversion. This isn't just about disliking arguments. It's a deep, primal, psychological need to maintain social harmony at all costs, even the cost of your own integrity, well-being, and respect. For the person afflicted by this flaw, reluctant doormat kindness becomes synonymous with acquiescence. The fear of causing offense, the dread of a raised voice, or the anxiety triggered by setting a hard boundary is so potent that they will choose internal suffering over external disagreement. They believe, on a core level, that a good person is one who is easygoing, agreeable, and never, ever the source of tension. The manipulator, the person who knows exactly how to test a boundary, understands this completely. They realize that the kind person's greatest weakness is not their compassion, but their desire for peace. Machiavelli's world is one of constant flux and competition, and he observed that people who prioritize avoiding friction are naturally sidelined. They lose power by default because they refuse to participate in the necessary friction of negotiation, assertion, and self-defense. When you are a reluctant doormat, your kindness is not seen as generosity. It is seen as a precondition for peace. People learn quickly that the easiest way to get what they want from you is to create a small threat of conflict. They don't even need to yell. A sigh, a look of disappointment, a subtle passive-aggressive comment, or the mere anticipation of a difficult conversation is enough to make you cave. You trade your boundaries for silence. Think about the requests you say yes to, requests that fill you with quiet dread. The obligation you accept because saying no would require a defense, a potential disagreement, or the momentary discomfort of letting someone down. This is the paralysis in action. You agree to work late. You agree to an expense you can't afford. You agree to a relationship demand that violates your values, all to avoid a 15-minute conversation where you have to stand firm. The psychological cost of this flaw is staggering. Every time you swallow a disagreement, every time you concede a boundary, that emotional energy doesn't disappear. It festers. It becomes internal resentment. You start to quietly hate the people you are bending over backward to please. Your outward kindness becomes a thin veneer over a core of boiling resentment, which often erupts in unpredictable, disproportionate ways, or leads to severe burnout and depression. This is where the truly kind person starts to feel like a victim in their own life. Machiavelli's advice is counterintuitive for the kind-hearted. It is better to be feared than loved. If you cannot be both. While this is often taken as a mandate for tyranny, its deeper psychological meaning is a warning against this specific flaw. It means, do not sacrifice respect for the sake of superficial affection. The reluctant doormat is seeking love and acceptance by being agreeable, but instead they earn contempt and exploitation. Fear, in this context, simply means respect for your boundaries. It means people fear the consequence of disrespecting you, not because you are cruel, but because you are firm and predictable in your self-defense. To overcome this paralysis, you must fundamentally reframe conflict. Conflict is not the opposite of kindness. It is often the highest form of kindness, both to yourself and to the other party. Setting a clear boundary is kind because it establishes clear expectations, preventing future misunderstandings and deeper resentment. Telling a difficult truth is kind because it respects the other person's reality and agency, allowing them to adjust their behavior. The power of that reluctant doormat's transformation lies in understanding that your primary duty is not to maintain external peace, but to maintain internal integrity. When you act from a place of integrity, when your yes means yes and your no means no, you become a predictable, trustworthy, and, most importantly, respected person. When you value your own internal peace more than their temporary discomfort, you become a force, not a casualty. Consider the subtle, yet consistent, emotional blackmail that targets the reluctant doormat. The person who says, "I was counting on you," or "I guess I don't matter," when you finally try to assert yourself, they are weaponizing your conflict aversion. The moment you recognize this tactic for what it is, a manipulative attempt to reinstate your role as the agreeable subordinate, the paralysis begins to lift. You realize that their discomfort is a small price to pay for your self-respect. This flaw is also the reason many people find themselves in toxic, one-sided friendships or partnerships. They stay not because they are happy, but because the thought of initiating the necessary separation, the conflict, the pain, the potential fallout is too daunting. They postpone the difficult conversation until the inevitable rupture is 10 times more painful than it would have been at the outset. They trade short-term peace for long-term psychological torment. The professional equivalent is the employee who perpetually takes on extra work without additional compensation. The business owner who accepts clients who constantly push for discounts or scope creep, or the volunteer who can't step down from a draining committee. They allow their value to be eroded one small concession at a time. The cumulative effect is the death of personal ambition, replaced by the crushing weight of obligation. To break the habit, start small. Practice saying, "Let me check my calendar and get back to you," instead of an immediate yes. Practice the phrase, "I can't do that, but I can offer this alternative." This is a form of strategic kindness. It maintains a relationship while fiercely protecting your boundaries. It transforms you from a powerless victim of circumstance into an active agent in your own life. You are kind, but you are not compliant. You are agreeable, but you are not available to be exploited. The greatest lesson here is that authentic kindness requires strength. It requires the strength to say no so that your yes has value. It requires the courage to stand for yourself. Because if you don't respect your own needs, no one else is philosophically obligated to do it for you. Your peace is worth fighting for, and that fight begins with a single firm no to the next request that threatens your integrity. Flaw 3. The tyranny of the savior complex, the addiction to validation. Let's descend into the third deadly flaw, one that often masquerades as the peak of morality. The tyranny of the savior complex. This is the subtle, self-centered aspect of kindness and addiction to the validation that comes from being the helper, the fixer, the indispensable person. The savior complex victim genuinely believes they are acting out of pure altruism. But a deeper psychological audit reveals a less noble truth. They are using other people's problems as a source of external self. They don't help because the problem demands their help. They help because their ego demands the feeling of being crucial. The truly kind person helps and walks away. The person with the savior complex helps and then lingers, waiting for the applause, the gratitude, the declaration of their superior virtue. This is a dangerous kindness because it shifts the focus from the recipient's growth to the giver's reward. The person with this complex often unconsciously seeks out situations where they can become the hero in a crisis, even manufacturing crises or exaggerating the need to justify their intervention. They feel uneasy when everything is stable and well-functioning, because that stability removes their stage. Machiavelli understood the fickle nature of gratitude. He knew that the moment the need is gone, the memory of the savior fades. Benefits should be granted gradually, so that they may be better enjoyed. While this quote refers to a prince's strategy, the warning for the kind person is this: if your motive for kindness is the enduring gratitude of others, you are setting yourself up for guaranteed disappointment and bitterness. The moment the rescued bird can fly, it leaves the cage, and the rescuer is left feeling used. not appreciated. The darker side of this complex is the unconscious undermining of others' competence. To remain the savior, you must keep those you help slightly dependent or perpetually in need. You might step in too quickly, solve problems that they could have solved themselves, or even subtly criticize their attempts at self-sufficiency, ensuring they never truly graduate from the status of the rescued. In a relationship, this manifests as constantly fixing your partner, rather than empowering them. In a team setting, it's the manager who micromanages because they need to be the one to single-handedly save the project. In friendship, it's the person who makes every conversation about the latest drama they are navigating on behalf of someone else. Their identity is so fused with their utility that they cannot fathom a life where they are simply a person, not a pillar. The manipulator preys on this flaw by feigned helplessness. They understand that you don't want a solution. You want a role? So, they present a problem with a dramatic display of inability, knowing you will rush in. They get their needs met, and you get your validation hit. It's a transaction, but because it's clothed in the language of nobility. The savior complex. Victim doesn't recognize the exchange rate is terrible for them. The great liberation from this tyranny is recognizing that true strength lies in empowering others, not enabling them. The goal of genuine kindness is to make yourself redundant, to equip the person you help with the tools to never need your help for that specific problem again. This requires a profound shift in mindset, a change from how can I fix this for them, to how can I help them fix this for themselves. This shift is incredibly difficult because it demands that you relinquish the control and the praise that come from being the hero. It demands that you sit on your hands and allow someone to struggle, to fail, and to learn, knowing that their struggle is their path to power, not an opportunity for your grand entrance. The tyranny of the savior complex is a subtle form of narcissism, disguised as compassion. The emotional reward of the savior role becomes so addictive that they prioritize their own need to feel good over the long-term well-being and autonomy of the person they are supposedly helping. They don't want the recipient to stand up straight. They want them to remain kneeling in gratitude. Think of the philanthropist who needs a building named after them, or the parent who constantly intervenes in their adult child's life, preventing them from developing the necessary resilience. Their kindness is a gilded cage for the recipient and an emotional treadmill for the giver. The recipient never truly grows up. The giver never truly rests. To break free, you must engage in a painful but necessary internal audit. What is the deepest, truest reason I am intervening here? Is it for them, or is it for the feeling I get from it? If the answer is the latter, you are being unkind to yourself by overgiving and unkind to the other person by disempowering them. The strategic alternative is the practice of detachment and respect for agency. Offer advice, offer resources, offer temporary support, but then step back. Allow the silence, allow the struggle, and allow the natural consequences to become the greatest teacher. Your kindness is a spotlight, not a life raft. Shine it on their potential, then allow them to swim. This transition from savior to mentor is the path from self-sabotage to sustainable influence. The mentor helps the student become a master. The savior ensures the student remains a grateful pupil. Furthermore, this complex fuels the need to over-explain and justify all actions, even when no one is asking. The savior complex drives the person to announce their good deeds, to subtly humble brag about their exhaustion or their sacrifice. They need the world to know how good they are. This is a crucial tell. True, strategic kindness is often invisible. It acts without fanfare, without the need for reciprocal recognition. Because its reward is internal integrity, not external applause. The moment your kindness needs an audience, it has become a performance for your own ego. And that performance drains your resources, while often irritating the very people you are trying to impress. This dynamic also profoundly impacts one's personal boundaries. The person with the savior complex often finds their life overrun by the crises of others because they have subconsciously advertised their 24/7 availability as an emotional emergency service. They become the 911 for their social circle. They don't set boundaries because a boundary is a declaration. My time and energy are finite. But if their identity is tied to being infinite resource, they cannot afford to admit finite. They crash, they burn, and they wonder why their good intentions led to a life of misery. The truth is, your ultimate act of kindness to the world is to be a sustainable and powerful version of yourself. You cannot pour from an empty cup, and you certainly cannot fix anyone else's structural flaws until you've shored up your own. Step off the pedestal. Stop chasing the manufactured high of being the hero. Start pursuing the quiet, profound strength of being an empowered individual who chooses to help from a position of abundance, not psychological need. This is the only way to transform a deadly flaw into a reliable virtue. Flaw 4. The delusion of universal reciprocity. The naive investor. We now confront the fourth deadliest flaw, one that underpins much of the bitterness experienced by the kind-hearted, the delusion of universal reciprocity. This is the deep, often unstated, but powerful belief that the universe operates on a simple, moral ledger. If I am good to others, they will inevitably, eventually, be good to me. The kind person who harbors this delusion is essentially a naive investor. They see every act of kindness a favor, a generous gift, a listening ear, a sacrifice not as a freely given offering, but as a deposit into an emotional bank account. They believe that their investment of goodness will yield a predictable and moral return, usually in the form of loyalty, gratitude, or reciprocal aid when they inevitably need it. Machiavelli's political philosophy is a brutal corrective to this delusion. His counsel, born from observation of thousands of years of human history, is clear: men are much more careful to offend him who makes himself loved than him who makes himself feared. For love is held by a chain of obligation, which, because men are wicked, is broken at every opportunity for their own profit. But fear is maintained by a dread of punishment, which never forsakes you. The key phrase here is, because men are wicked. This doesn't mean everyone is evil. It means a significant, dangerous proportion of people will always prioritize their own immediate profit over any past obligation. Your kindness, your love, your history of favors, this is the chain of obligation he speaks of. It is lightweight, easily broken, and often ignored the moment a better opportunity for the recipient arises. The naive investor suffers the cruelest blow when they finally need to make a withdrawal from their emotional bank, only to find the account empty. The person they help the most is suddenly too busy, can't afford it, or simply ghosts. The shock, the anger, and the subsequent self-pity are profound because the investor feels betrayed, not just by a person, but by a universal moral law that they thought was immutable. The manipulator, the true psychological predator, loves the naive investor. They understand this delusion perfectly and strategically cultivate it. They are masters of the initial gratitude bomb, an over-dramatic expression of thanks designed to reinforce the giver's belief that this particular recipient is one of the good ones. This is done to ensure the well of kindness stays open for the next request. The gratitude is not a reflection of their character. It is a tool of access to dismantle this flaw. You must embrace a fundamental shift. Kindness must become its own sole reward. If you act kindly, do so because it aligns with your internal values, because it makes you the person you want to be, and because the act itself brings you satisfaction. The moment you attach an expectation of future favor, a reciprocal loyalty, or even simple gratitude, you have turned an act of virtue into a risky and likely losing contract. The strategic person practices detached generosity. They give fully, but they release the expectation immediately. They understand that while some people will reciprocate, others will be ungrateful, and others will simply disappear. By accepting the possibility of ingratitude before you act, you insulate yourself from the bitterness that follows. You are no longer investing. You are freely offering. This freedom is the core of sustainable kindness. The naive investor eventually burns out and becomes cynical, concluding that no good deed goes unpunished. The strategic individual remains kind, not out of naive optimism, but out of a position of psychological strength, knowing that their kindness is a reflection of their own character, not a prediction of the world's. Furthermore, this delusion causes the naive investor to overlook glaring character flaws. They cling to the belief that my goodness will change them, or they'll see the light eventually. They forgive egregious errors, justify blatant disrespect, and endure continuous abuse because they believe their sheer, unwavering benevolence will eventually crack the shell of the other person's poor character and release the good soul they assume is inside. They invest time, energy, and love into a person who has already proven themselves to be a bad investment. This is a failure of realism. Machiavelli demands that you judge people not by your hope for them, but by their track record. Their past behavior is the single most reliable predictor of their future actions. The kindness that ignores this principle is not compassionate. It is self-destructive fantasy. It is a refusal to see the world as it is, preferring the comforting delusion of how you wish it were. The antidote is the adoption of a transactional mindset in non-intimate relationships. In business, in casual friendships, and in most professional dealings, favors should be clearly defined and, ideally, reciprocal, not left to a vague, moral obligation. If you do something significant for someone, a simple, clear, "I'm happy to do this, and I know I can count on you if I need a hand with a specific, comparable task in the future," establishes a clear contract. This is not unkind. It is clear communication and mutual respect. It protects both parties from the bitterness of unmet, unspoken expectations. The greatest danger of the delusion of universal reciprocity is that it ultimately poisons the well of the giver's heart. When the naive investor is betrayed for the 10th time, they don't become wiser. They often become closed off, bitter, and cynical about all human relationships. They punish the next genuinely good person they meet for the sins of the previous ungrateful ones. Their initial, beautiful kindness is annihilated by the resentment born of unfulfilled expectations. To maintain your goodness, you must detach your self-worth from the responsiveness of others. You are not a good person because they thanked you. You are a good person because you chose to act well. Your virtue is internal, unshakable, and independent of external validation. Embrace the strength of this detachment, and the ungratefulness of others will no longer shatter your spirit, but simply confirm your understanding of the world. You move from the heartbreak of an empty account to the quiet confidence of a philanthropist who acts without expecting a receipt. This is a form of philosophical maturity. It acknowledges the duality of human nature. It accepts that for every genuine soul, there is a calculating opportunist. By detaching the act of giving from the expectation of receiving, you remove your vulnerability to the latter, while still being able to appreciate the former. You cease to be the naive investor and become the self-sufficient donor, whose actions are driven by choice, not coercion or contract. This is the difference between a lifetime of bitter disappointment and a lifetime of sustainable, joyful benevolence. Flaw 5. The over-optimization of niceness. The psychological predictability, the fifth deadly flaw, is perhaps the most strategic oversight. The over-optimization of niceness. This is the error of allowing your kindness to become so predictable that it fundamentally strips you of your strategic flexibility and makes you an open book to any competent antagonist. In the world of dark psychology and strategic thinking, predictability is the enemy of influence. The genuinely kind person, the one who is obsessively driven to maintain an image of unblemished niceness, becomes a psychological algorithm. A manipulator, after only a few interactions, can perfectly predict how you will react to a guilt trip, how quickly you will forgive a betrayal, where your boundaries are weakest, and what you will sacrifice to avoid conflict. You have become the psychological predictability. Machiavelli's greatest contribution was the concept of vertige, which he saw not as moral virtue, but as a blend of strength, courage, skill, and, critically, adaptability. The great leader, the influential figure, must be able to change their approach as the circumstances demand. Sometimes they must be generous, sometimes firm, and sometimes, yes, even seemingly harsh. The inability to deploy these different psychological tools is the death of influence. The over-optimized nice person, however, has only one tool: agreement and gentle concession. They have become so convinced that niceness is the only moral and effective strategy that they refuse to develop a backup emotional state. When they are pushed, when they are betrayed, they are left defenseless, not because they are weak, but because they have never allowed themselves the emotional permission to deploy anger, righteous indignation, or cold detachment. This psychological inflexibility means that their kindness can be weaponized by contrast. The manipulator will use their own occasional, manufactured outbursts of anger or feigned outrage to easily frighten the predictable person into immediate compliance. They know the nice person will choose appeasement over confrontation every single time. Your predictable niceness makes their theatrical displays of temper devastatingly effective. To be truly influential and safe, you must cultivate the strategic shadow. You must possess the capacity for firmness, for justified anger, for decisive action, even if you rarely use it. The true power lies not in being incapable of being mean, but in being capable and choosing not to be. This is why many seemingly gentle individuals who actually hold power, a respected CEO, a revered professor, a powerful diplomat, have an air of quiet gravity about them. You know, instinctively, that while they are kind, there is a line of steel that you should not cross. They are not predictable. Their actions are measured and tailored to the situation, not to a singular, rigid internal code of niceness. The over-optimization of niceness is also a form of emotional dishonesty. You are often saying yes when you mean no, smiling when you are furious, and acting agreeable when you are deeply resentful. This not only poisons your own soul, but actively confuses those around you. When the nice person finally breaks and snaps, their reaction is often seen as completely out of character and disproportionate, leading others to dismiss their valid boundary setting as a sudden, inexplicable meltdown. The truth is, their eruption was not sudden. It was the inevitable consequence of 1,000 repressed concessions. They failed to express their truth in small, firm, and strategic increments, and so it emerged in a catastrophic explosion. The non-predictable, strategically flexible person avoids this by being authentically firm from the beginning. They say no calmly, and they enforce boundaries consistently. So a full-scale emotional breakdown is never necessary. To escape this psychological trap, you must deliberately practice contextual kindness. Learn to assess the person and the situation before you deploy your response. For the trustworthy and reciprocal person, deploy genuine generosity. For the person who constantly tests boundaries, deploy firm detachment. For the person who attempts manipulation, deploy a sudden, icy clarity that demonstrates you are aware of their game. This last point is crucial. The manipulator's power comes from the victim's belief that they are not being played. The moment you demonstrate that you are not only aware of their tactic, but are choosing a different response, a cold, analytical, I will not be guilt-tripped, you have broken their predictability algorithm and neutralized their power. The great psychological safety of the wise person is that they are unreadable to the superficial observer. They can be warm and empathetic one moment, and profoundly pragmatic and self-protective the next. They refuse to be boxed in by a single, simple label like the nice guy or the sweet girl. They are complex, multifaceted, and their actions are always a reflection of their strategic integrity, not their desire for external approval. Embrace the strength that comes from knowing you are not obligated to meet the world's simple expectation of you. Be kind, yes, but be strategically unpredictable in your response to disrespect and exploitation. Let people know that while your baseline is benevolent, you have an unbreakable core, and you are willing and capable of defending it. This flexibility turns kindness from a fatal flaw into a psychological advantage. When you become predictable, your value diminishes. People do not respect what is always available and always agreeable. They take it for granted, like air. The moment you introduce a calculated measure of scarcity and selective resistance to your availability and agreement, your kindness becomes valuable again. It becomes a reward, not an expectation. This is the difference between a person who is walked over and a person whose generosity is genuinely cherished. The true goal is to achieve psychological opacity, the ability to keep your intentions and your next move slightly obscured. The over-optimized nice person's next move is always to concede and apologize. The strategically kind person's next move could be a graceful exit, a firm boundary, or a completely unexpected, uncompromising counter-demand. This is what generates respect. This is what generates psychological power. This is what ensures your kindness is sustainable and your life is safe. Flaw 6. The erosion of self-focus, the compassion drain. The sixth flaw is an often overlooked consequence of dangerous kindness, the erosion of self-focus. This is the gradual, systematic surrender of your own personal goals, ambitions, and necessary self-care in favor of perpetually managing the needs and emotional crises of others. It leads to the crippling state we call the compassion drain. The person afflicted by this flaw treats their own life, their projects, their rest, their health, their long-term vision as perpetually secondary. They are always on call for the urgent, dramatic needs of others, postponing their own important, yet less urgent, objectives. They are masters of interruption, allowing any incoming request for help or emotional support to immediately derail their own focus. They become the emotional equivalent of a 24-hour emergency room, where everyone else's panic is granted priority over their own scheduled surgery. Machiavelli's advice for the aspiring leader is a direct warning to the person suffering from this drain. Among other evils, which being unarmed brings you, it causes you to be despised. This isn't literal disarmament, it's strategic disarmament. When you are constantly drained, perpetually tired, and have failed to build your own robust life, the arms he speaks of, you become, in the eyes of the ruthless, contemptible. Why? Because they see a life that is perpetually out of balance, a person who is not sovereign over their own time and energy. They see a person who is willing to sacrifice their own future for someone else's present comfort. They see someone who doesn't value their own life enough to protect it. And if you don't value yourself, why should they? The compassion drain is a slow, silent killer of potential. It prevents the kind person from ever achieving the long-term, impactful success that would actually allow them to help others from a position of true strength and abundance. Instead, they remain stuck in a cycle of hand-to-mouth emotional labor, perpetually exhausted and perpetually needy themselves. Ironically, this is the flaw that turns a generous spirit into a burnt-out cynic. The constant giving without replenishment creates a profound deficit, not just of energy, but of personal accomplishment. The giver looks back on years of their life and sees a long list of things they did for others, but their own dreams, the book they wanted to write, the business they wanted to start, the physical shape they wanted to be in remain untouched, gathering dust. The manipulator exploits this by fostering a deep, subtle sense of guilt around the concept of self-focus. They will subtly imply, or sometimes outright state, that any time you spend on yourself is time stolen from someone who needs you more. They weaponize the very language of selflessness to demand self-abandonment. They make self-care feel like selfishness. The profound truth to internalize is that self-focus is the prerequisite for sustainable kindness. Your first duty is to cultivate your own power, your own peace, and your own prosperity, not because you are selfish, but because the stronger and more resilient you are, the more genuine, impactful, and non-draining your help will be. When you choose to offer it, to reverse the compassion drain, you must adopt an aggressive strategy of self-sovereignty. Time protection. Treat your focused work time, your rest, and your health commitments with the same reverence you would treat an emergency request from a loved one. Schedule your self-focus and defend that schedule ruthlessly. The Big 3 Audit. Identify the 3 biggest, most important personal goals in your life, right now. Before you agree to any external request, ask, does this service to another person directly or indirectly contribute to, or distract from, my Big 3? If it only distracts, the answer must be a hard no. The abundance principle. Only help from a place of abundance, never from a place of scarcity. If a request forces you to sacrifice your last ounce of energy, your last hour of sleep, or your last dollar, you are not helping. You are creating 2 needy people. Wait until you have a surplus to give. This is not a retreat into selfishness. It is a strategic retreat for the purpose of You are stepping back to build the emotional, financial, and physical strength that allows you to engage with the world on your terms. From a position of power and integrity, the ultimate measure of sustainable kindness is the state of the giver. If your kindness is leading to your exhaustion, your bitterness, and the failure of your own life's mission, it is not virtue. It is a pathology. True generosity is a fountain. Dangerous kindness is a leaky faucet that drains the reservoir dry. Take back your time, reclaim your focus, and start building the life that is worthy of your own beautiful effort. Because a sovereign, powerful self is the greatest gift you can ever offer the world. Your ultimate act of kindness is to be fully realized and whole. The strategic heart, the new virtue. We began this journey by confronting the hidden cost of a simplistic, unexamined goodness. We pulled back the curtain on the beautiful lie that teaches us to prioritize external approval over internal integrity. You've walked through the minefield of the 7 deadly flaws of dangerous kindness, the blindness of empathy, becoming the lamb, the paralysis of conflict aversion, becoming the reluctant doormat, the tyranny of the savior complex, becoming the validation addict. The delusion of universal reciprocity, becoming the naive investor, the over-optimization of niceness, becoming the psychological predictability. The erosion of self-focus, becoming the compassion drain. Now, you have a choice. You can cling to the old fable, accepting the inevitable pain and exploitation. Or you can embrace the strategic heart. The strategic heart doesn't discard kindness. It elevates it. It is the heart that has learned Machiavelli's brutal lessons. Not to become a villain, but to ensure it can never be made a victim. It is the kindness that is backed by the steel of self-respect, the clarity of rational appraisal, and the conviction of unshakable boundaries. This new virtue is the ability to look at another's distress, feel genuine compassion, and then ask the critical question, is my intervention truly helpful, or merely self-soothing and enabling? It is the ability to say a kind and respectful no that serves the long-term growth of both you and the person asking. It is the wisdom to be silent about your good deeds, knowing that your greatest reward is the strength they leave behind, not the praise they elicit. This is your psychological You are no longer unarmed and despised. You are a person of profound, selective generosity, whose time, energy, and resources are a valuable resource, dispensed with wisdom and foresight. You have moved from being a liability to an asset, from a target to a powerful force for good. The world doesn't need more agreeable doormats. It needs more strong, sovereign, and strategically kind people who understand that self-respect is the foundation of genuine compassion. Your final action step is simple, yet revolutionary. For the next 7 days, every time you are asked for something, practice the art of the pause. Do not answer immediately. Tell them, let me check my schedule, energy, resources, and I'll get back to you. This pause is the psychological space where the flaw dies and the strategic heart is born. Thank you for confronting the darkness within your own light. The journey to influence begins when you stop being used and start being intentional. If this script has shifted your perspective, if it has armed you with a new sense of power and clarity, then like the video, share it, subscribe for more deep dives into the shadows of philosophy and psychology, and tell me in the comments, which of these flaws has cost you the most. Until next time, remain vigilant, remain aware, and always protect your light with a clear and strategically fortified darkness.